Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. So we're getting back into New Mutants, and New Mutants is the absolute best thing coming out of Marvel Comics right now. And this is the craziest thing, right? Oh, by the way, for those of you guys who want to see my uncensored videos, and those of you guys who actually want to see videos, I think the next one we're doing is Superboy Prime versus Franklin Richards. And then I think after that, we're doing Superboy Prime versus Matthew Malloy. If you want to see the versus videos, head over to Patreon, right? The uncensored videos are like $1 a month, and the versus videos are like $5, right? So it's not like an arm and a leg or anything. It's pretty cool stuff. But New Mutants is amazing. It's absolutely stellar. So in the first video that we did, we had basically talked about how the New Mutants was more or less being reformed with the exception of Sam Guthrie, right? Sam Guthrie was one of the original members of the New Mutants, and where the team was being reformed, they were actually being reformed for the purpose of going on a mission to Shiar space in order to save Sam and bring him back. And the indication was that he was in jeopardy. The issue with this is that where they were able to book passage with the Starjammers, of course led by Corsair, who's the father of Scott Summers, and the Starjammers are basically space pirates, more or less. What they ended up discovering is that the Starjammers actually intended to steal an artifact. And so the result was that the New Mutants got involved, and ultimately they were arrested for the stealing of this artifact. When everything went south, the Starjammers made off with it, and then they were taken before the court of the Shiar. Now, here's the thing. The court of the Shiar is intense, right? Like Marvel's shown this multiple times over the years. They're hardcore, right? Like the lawyer, who's basically like a Marvel Comics version of Better Call Saul, is basically what he is, which is amazing. I don't know how many of you guys watched that show, but I loved Saul Goodman in Breaking Bad, and Better Call Saul has always been solid. But the lawyer basically tries to plead the case that, like, because the New Mutants are from Earth, they don't really know Shiar customs or how anything works there, and so they should essentially be pardoned. Like, he basically takes all of them and throws them before the court's mercy. And the response of the judge is like, are we in Earth space or are we in Shiar space? And the lawyer's like, we're in Shiar space. And the judge is like, that's what I thought. Guilty. And it's like, we don't care where they're from. They broke our laws, and that's just the way it's going to go. So they're basically like, this carries a lifetime sentence. You're going to be handed over to the Shiar officials, and they're going to decide what they want to do for you. Only for us to find out that they're being handed over to Sam Guthrie and to Super Guardian, the Smasher, Isabel Kane. This is kind of funny, right? Because like, we didn't really know what was going on with Sam Guthrie when he was out here. Apparently he's doing pretty good for himself, and it kind of makes sense. I don't know if any of you guys know who Super Guardian is. She was a character who was introduced during Jonathan Hickman's Avengers and New Avengers, but basically Isabel Kane is really one of the very few instances, and when I say few, I mean like you can count them on one hand, the very few instances where an Earthling is actually inducted into the Shiar Imperial Guard. The Shiar Imperial Guard is basically this elite fighting force composed of like the most powerful or worthy beings throughout the entirety of Shiar space, right? So the Shiar only really brings in those who were part of the Shiar Empire. Going as far as to bring somebody in from Earth was actually a pretty big deal. The nature of Isabel Kane is she has what are called exospecs, I think is what they're called, but basically it's those red looking glasses she has. When she puts those on, they give her the suit that she has along with like super strength and speed, durability. She can fly through space without needing some kind of an oxygen tank. It gives her all the things that she needs. She's pretty capable, and she's pretty daggone powerful. She's a big time heavy hitter. During the events of Time Runs Out, which basically had that 8-month gap between really when the multiverse was collapsing and like when it all started to basically wind down, when the multiverse was coming to an end, Sam Guthrie and Isabel Kane actually ended up getting together. They had a kid together, got married, that kind of a thing, and they've basically been together ever since, right? So that's why you see the two of them together here. But it's kind of a cool little thing, right? Because like it's like basically this great big huge coming together and the return of the New Mutants. And Sam Guthrie's just as goofy as he ever was. Like, how did you know we were here? He's like, well, I actually planted tracking devices behind your ears. The reality was that the space lawyer called him. But this is cool, right? So for old school fans of New Mutants, it's a return to form, and that's what makes Dawn of X so cool. Is it's like a return to the way X-Men are supposed to be, right? Like each title is individual, and each title feels unique, right? It has its own style of storytelling. It's telling its own various adventures. It's awesome, right? And this feels like old school New Mutants, right? Like the hipster comic book fans or the really old comic book fans will probably attest to this. Like it feels like old school New Mutants, and it works, right? It's that great blend of comedy and seriousness. And so the result of this is that with them basically being handed over to Sam Guthrie and to Super Guardian, the issue then comes into play where Super Guardian is contacted by Gladiator. Now remember, Gladiator is the current ruler of the Shiar Empire, and it's cool, right? Because what he basically says is the Shiar Empire is in need of your aid. You've all been conscripted. Here's your mission. go carry it out. Now remember, the nature of the Shiar Empire, especially under the rule of Gladiator, isn't really like dark. Like Gladiator's not a dick, right? Like, he's not like a terrible leader or anything. He's not like ruling with like an iron fist, but it's one of those things where you don't disrespect the throne. And that was even the case with Gladiator himself when he was leader of the Imperial Guard. Like, he wouldn't defy the orders of the Emperor or the Empress, but if they were orders he disagreed with, he would kind of try to find a way to skirt them. It was an interesting little thing. Like, I believe Lilandra was alive at the time. Yeah, Lilandra was alive during the rise of Vulcan, the Third Summer's brother, when he started trying to take over the Shiar Empire. And so initially, I believe that Vulcan tasked Gladiator with executing Lilandra, and instead he basically escorted her out of Shiar space, got her out of there, and basically had her live in exile. Ultimately she died, but had her live in exile for a time, or at least tried to help her escape. So he was kind of like skirting, right? Like skirting the rules, more or less. But the reason why they've all been conscripted here is because when Super Guardian shows up, when Isabel Kane shows up, she's like, all of you guys are going to be serving on our behalf, all of you guys are going to be working for us, and here's the reason why. But before we get an explanation, we end up jumping to Gladiator, who's meeting with Zandra. Zandra is basically the daughter of Lilandra Naramani and Charles Xavier, with the two of them having a love interest. Yeah, I know, Charles Xavier's having kids all over the place, man. It's nuts. Like, for a guy who can't walk, he's having a whole lot of kids. I don't understand how that works. It's kind of nuts, man. Charles Xavier gets around. But Zandra, despite how young she looks, she is a hoss. She is a force to be reckoned with. She's basically an Omega level character. Her power basically allows her to tap into the minds of others, and it works on a universal scale, right? So like anybody in the universe, she can tap into their mind and basically dominate their mind, dominate and control them. So imagine Charles Xavier, but like if he could reach out to the universe. It's ridiculous how powerful she is. Like it's one of those characters like Marvel never really does anything with. It's nuts where her character resides. Now, admittedly, when I say Marvel never really does anything with her, a lot of that's probably because of the fact that she didn't really show up until Mr. and Mrs. X #2, I think it was, in October of 2018. So she's been around for like a year, right? So like not long enough to do anything with. So I guess I'm kind of being a little overly harsh on Marvel, but it's kind of a cool thing because what's really happening here, and this is a very easy thing to overlook, but it's very important. What's happening here is the response of Gladiator is the Shiar Empire needs to have a Naramani on the throne, meaning Zandra needs to become the new leader of the Shiar. Essentially, with Lilandra not being there, it's kind of starting the cycle all over again, right? Because she's a spitting image of her mom. And so it's the cycle starting all over again, that a Naramani is taking over the throne, Gladiator is stepping down as Magister and going back to being the Praetor of the Imperial Guard, basically the leader of the Imperial Guard. It's returning the Shiar landscape back to the way it was under Chris Claremont. And it's a pretty significant thing. We end up finding out the reason why this is the case is because of the fact that basically Deathbird is trying to find a way to make her way back to ruling the Shiar Empire. Deathbird being the sister of Lilandra and exceedingly dangerous. It's cool. If you don't really care about the X-Men or the Shiar, then this doesn't really matter to you. It's just kind of like, oh, all right, I mean, that's cool. But if you're like me, dude, it's awesome, man. It's pretty sweet, and I'm very, very excited about it. But with that being said, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys want to see my uncensored and versus videos, head over to patreon.com/Comics Explained. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace. I want to give a shout out to Jason C, Austin S, Jason S, Austin H, Phillip, and Austin B. We have a lot of Austins in our Patreon, as well as Genosis916. Genosis didn't give us a first and last name, so we kind of had to roll with it. I didn't mention your all's last names. I figured you guys didn't want me to throw them out there, but I want to say thank you to you all. By the way, your Rob Corps rings should be on their way. For our Honor Guard members of the Rob Corps, for these special patrons, your custom Rob Corps rings should be on their way. They're being shipped to me. After that, I will have them shipped to you. Stay tuned, keep your eye on Patreon and your messages, and you will hear about them coming to you. Thank you.